She walked into a biker clubhouse holding a glass jar packed with pennies, nickels, and dimes, and asked if it was enough to save her mother's life. No one knew her name or her story, but the moment she whispered who she was trying to escape, everything inside that room changed. What the bikers decided to do next is something you won't forget. The Iron Valley Riders Clubhouse smelled like bacon grease and strong coffee that Saturday morning. Community Breakfast Day, a tradition that started years ago when Deke, the club's cook and former army mechanic, decided that if the doors stayed open, people might actually walk through them. Neighbors wandered in, families grabbed plates, and for a few hours, the leather vests and engine oil mixed with syrup and small talk. Sunlight cut through the dusty windows, painting gold stripes across the long wooden tables. Laughter echoed off the concrete walls. A couple of older members argued about a football game no one else remembered. Kids chased each other between chairs while their parents pretended not to notice. It was the kind of morning where nothing important was supposed to happen. Then the front door creaked open, and a small figure stepped inside. She couldn't have been older than 10. Faded jeans worn soft at the knees. A simple gray shirt, one size too big, tucked in unevenly. Her brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail that looked like she'd done it herself. A little crooked, a little loose. She held something against her chest with both hands, gripping it like it might try to escape. A glass jar, the kind that once held salsa or pickles. Now it was filled to the brim with coins. Pennies, nickels, a few dimes catching the light. She didn't look around for permission or wait for someone to notice her. She walked straight through the crowd, past the tables, past the men twice her height, past the noise and the clatter of forks, until she reached the counter where Deke stood flipping pancakes. She set the jar down with a heavy clink. The sound cut through the room like a knife through bread. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. Deke wiped his hands on his apron and looked down at her, one eyebrow raised. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, his voice gentle despite his size. "You hungry? We got plenty." She shook her head slowly. "I need to know," she said, her voice small but steady, "if this is enough to take my mom somewhere safe." The silence that followed was the kind that presses against your chest. Deke blinked. Behind him, a spatula clattered against the griddle. Someone coughed. He crouched down, bringing his weathered face level with hers. Up close, he noticed things. The faint shadows under her eyes, the way she held her shoulders tight like she was bracing for something. This wasn't a kid playing pretend. This was a kid carrying weight no child should know. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lena." "Lena." He nodded, letting the name settle. "That's a strong name. Can you tell me what you mean, honey? Take your mom where?" She glanced toward the door, then back at him. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her shirt. "Away from him," she whispered. "He gets mad at her. Really mad. I think he'll really hurt her. But she won't leave. She keeps saying we'll be okay." Her voice cracked slightly. "But we're not okay. I know we're not." Deke felt something twist in his gut. An old, familiar anger. The kind he thought he'd buried years ago. He took a slow breath. "Who is he, Lena?" "Your dad." She shook her head quickly. "No, Brent. He's her boyfriend. He moved in last year." She paused, her eyes dropping to the floor. "He smells like gasoline, and he never smiles right. Not with his eyes." A few of the men had gathered closer now, keeping their distance but listening. No one interrupted. No one made a joke. The room had shifted into something heavier, something that demanded respect. "I heard him talking on the phone," Lena continued, her words spilling out faster now, like a dam breaking. "He said he was going to take us out of town for a while, somewhere no one would bother us. But the way he said it," she shivered, "it made my stomach hurt, so I took my coins. I was saving them for roller skates, but I don't care about that anymore. I just thought maybe if someone came with us, she'd leave. Someone he couldn't scare." She looked up at Deke, and in her eyes he saw something that broke him open, something that looked almost like hope, raw and stubborn. "I don't want anyone to hurt him," she added quickly. "I just want my mom to see that she doesn't have to stay, that there's another way." Deke reached out and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Lena," he said, his voice rough but kind, "you did the right thing coming here, and I promise you we're going to figure this out together. Okay?" She nodded, and for the first time since she walked in, her grip on the jar loosened. Behind the counter, the pancakes started to burn. No one moved to flip them. Some things matter more than breakfast. One of the older members, a guy named Hicks with a gray beard and a voice like gravel, walked over and crouched beside Deke. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at Lena, then at the jar, then back at her. "You walked here alone?" he asked. She nodded. "How far?" "6 blocks. Maybe 7. Hicks let out a slow breath. He glanced at Deke, and something passed between them, an unspoken agreement that this wasn't going to end with pancakes. "You're a tough kid," Hicks said quietly. "Tougher than most grown men I know." Her shoulders dropped just a little, like she'd been waiting for someone to say that. Deke led Lena to a quieter corner of the clubhouse, away from the breakfast crowd. He grabbed a chair, turned it around, and sat facing her while she perched on the edge of an old leather couch. The jar of coins sat between them on a scratched coffee table, catching the light like a small treasure chest full of desperate wishes. Monica appeared without being called. She was the kind of woman who noticed things before anyone else did. The slight tremble in a voice, the way someone's eyes darted toward the exit. She ran the donation table on community days, but her real gift was reading people. She set down a glass of orange juice in front of Lena and took a seat nearby, close enough to listen, far enough not to crowd. "You want to tell us more about what's been happening at home?" Deke asked gently. "Only what you feel comfortable sharing." Lena wrapped her hands around the glass without drinking it. She stared at the surface of the juice like it held answers. "It's not like in the movies," she started quietly. "He doesn't yell all the time. Sometimes he's nice. He bought me ice cream once, and he let me watch TV past my bedtime." She paused. "But then something changes, like a switch flipping. You can feel it in the air before it happens." Monica leaned forward slightly. "What do you feel, Lena?" "Everything gets tight. The room gets smaller. Mom starts talking faster, trying to make him laugh or calm down. She'll say things like, 'Let's just have a nice evening, okay?' But her voice shakes when she says it." Lena's fingers tightened around the glass, and he just stares at her, doesn't blink. "That's when I go to my room and close the door." Deke exchanged a glance with Monica. Neither of them spoke. They let the silence hold space for whatever came next. "I've never seen him hit her," Lena admitted. "Not really, but I've seen what happens after. The bruises on her arms that she says came from bumping into things. The way she winces when she reaches for something on a high shelf. Once, I saw her cleaning up broken plates at 2 in the morning. She told me she dropped them by accident." Lena shook her head slowly. "But there were too many pieces, like someone threw them." Her voice had grown smaller with each sentence, as if the memories were pulling her underwater. Monica reached out and placed a hand on her knee, a quiet reminder that she wasn't alone. "What about your dad?" Monica asked softly. "Is he around?" Lena shook her head. "He left when I was little. I don't really remember him. Mom says he wasn't ready to be a father." She shrugged, a gesture too old for her years. "Brent showed up about a year ago. Mom met him at the diner where she works. He was nice at first, brought her flowers, fixed things around the house. I thought maybe—" She trailed off, and something fragile flickered across her face. "I thought maybe he'd be like a real dad, but he's not. He's something else." Deke cleared his throat. "You said you heard him on the phone, talking about taking you somewhere. Lena nodded, her jaw tightening. It was 2 nights ago. Mom was in the shower, and I was supposed to be asleep. But I heard him in the kitchen. He was talking low, like he didn't want anyone to hear. He said something like, "I'll take them out of town for a while. Somewhere quiet. No one asking questions." And then he laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was cold. She looked up at Deke, and her eyes were wet but fierce. That's when I knew I had to do something. Mom keeps telling me everything's fine, but it's not. She's scared all the time. She doesn't sleep. She checks the locks 3 times before bed. She hides her phone when he's around. Lena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm only 10. I can't fight him. I can't make her leave. But I thought maybe if someone else came, someone bigger, someone he couldn't push around, she'd finally see that she doesn't have to stay. Monica's voice was steady but warm. You're incredibly brave, Lena. You know that? Most adults wouldn't have the courage to do what you just did. Lena shook her head. I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being scared. Neither of them knew what to say after that. Deke rubbed his jaw, thinking. He'd seen situations like this before. Not often, but enough to know that storming in with fists raised would only make things worse. Men like Brent fed on confrontation. They twisted it, used it as proof that they were the real victims. If the club wanted to help, they'd have to be smarter than that. Here's what we're going to do, he said finally. We're not going to do anything that puts you or your mom in more danger. But we're also not going to walk away. Monica here is going to take you home in a bit, only to talk to your mom. Woman to woman. No pressure, no judgment. Just a conversation. Lena looked at Monica, searching her face for something. Reassurance? Maybe? Or proof that this wasn't just another empty promise. Monica smiled gently. I won't push her, Lena, but I'll make sure she knows there are people who care. And options she might not see right now. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, she whispered. But please don't make it worse. She's all I have. Monica squeezed her hand. That's exactly why we're going to be careful. Monica's truck rolled to a stop in front of a small house at the end of Maple Street. The paint was peeling near the gutters, and the lawn needed mowing, but flower pots lined the porch steps. Someone's quiet attempt to make the place feel like home. Lena sat in the passenger seat, her hands clasped in her lap. She hadn't spoken much during the drive, just pointed out turns and nodded at street names. Now she stared at the front door like it might bite. His truck isn't here, she said softly. He usually goes to the bar on Saturdays. Stays there until dinner. Monica nodded. That's good. Gives us time. She turned off the engine but didn't move to get out. Instead, she looked at Lena with calm, steady eyes. I need you to let me lead. Okay? Your mom might be defensive at first. That's normal. People in her situation often are. But I've done this before, and I know how to listen without pushing. Can you trust me? Lena studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I trust you. They walked up the porch together. Lena knocked twice, a rhythm that must have been familiar because the curtain shifted almost immediately. A moment later, the door cracked open, and a woman's face appeared in the gap. Angie was younger than Monica expected. Early 30s, maybe. She had Lena's brown hair and tired eyes framed by faint lines that didn't belong on someone her age. Her gaze jumped from her daughter to the stranger beside her, and her body tensed. Lena? Who is this? What's going on? Mom, it's okay. Lena stepped forward quickly. This is Monica. She's a friend. She just wants to talk. Angie's eyes narrowed. Talk about what? Monica kept her voice soft, unhurried. Just Angie. Angie, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm not here to judge. Lena came to see us this morning at the community breakfast, and she was worried about you. I just wanted to check in. That's all. Angie's jaw tightened. She looked down at her daughter with a mixture of fear and frustration. "Lena, what did you tell them?" "The truth, Mom." The words landed like stones in still water. Angie's face shifted. A flash of shame, then something harder. She stepped back and opened the door wider, though her posture remained guarded. "Fine, come in. But make it quick. He'll be back eventually." The inside of the house was neat but sparse. A couch with mismatched cushions. A TV mounted on the wall. A kitchen visible through an open doorway. Dishes drying on a rack. Everything in its place, nothing out of line, the kind of order that comes from walking on eggshells. Monica sat at the kitchen table across from Angie while Lena hovered near the doorway, watching. "I'm not going to pretend I know your whole story," Monica began, "but I've seen enough to recognize certain patterns. And I've worked with women who've been through similar situations." Angie crossed her arms. "I don't need a lecture. I'm not here to give one." Monica leaned forward slightly. "I'm here because your daughter walked into a room full of strangers and asked if a jar of coins was enough to save your life. That took courage I've rarely seen in adults. And it tells me she sees things clearly, even if you're not ready to." Angie's composure cracked for just a second. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked it away. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice quieter now. "Brent has his moments, but he's not a monster. He's just stressed. Work's been hard. Money's tight. He doesn't mean to." "To what?" Monica asked gently. "To scare her? To leave marks you have to hide." Angie looked away. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. "I can handle it." "I believe you think that." Monica reached into her pocket and pulled out a small card. She slid it across the table. "This is Jenny. She's connected to the club, but more importantly, she used to work in victim advocacy. She runs a support group now. No pressure, no commitments. Just women talking to other women who understand." Angie stared at the card like it was written in a foreign language. "There's also a shelter nearby," Monica continued. "They help women start over, new place to stay, paperwork, jobs if you need one. And nobody knows you're there unless you want them to. If you ever decide you want out, no pressure, just whenever you're ready. There's a path." Silence stretched between them. Lena hadn't moved from the doorway. Her eyes were fixed on her mother, waiting. Finally, Angie picked up the card. She didn't say anything, but she slipped it into her pocket. Monica stood. "I'll leave you two alone." "But Angie, your daughter didn't come to us because she's scared of him. She came because she's scared of losing you." Angie's breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her mouth, blinking hard. Monica walked toward the door, pausing beside Lena. She placed a hand briefly on the girl's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of everything unspoken. Outside, the sun was beginning to dip. Monica climbed into her truck and sat there for a moment, watching the house. Some rescues happen with sirens and urgency. Others happen with a card on a kitchen table and a seed planted in silence. She started the engine and drove away, hoping something would take root. The days that followed Monica's visit moved slowly, like waiting for a storm that wouldn't break. Angie didn't mention the card. She tucked it into her nightstand drawer beneath old receipts and forgotten earrings. But Lena noticed her mother opening that drawer more than once, staring at its contents in silence. Something had shifted. Small things at first. Angie started keeping her phone closer, charging it in places Brent wouldn't think to look. She began packing a second bag of clothes for Lena, hidden in the back of the hallway closet. She stopped arguing when Brent raised his voice, something sharper now, calculation. She was watching him now with different eyes. On Tuesday, Angie called Jenny. The conversation lasted 40 minutes. Lena sat on the porch, pretending to read a book, but she could hear fragments through the open window. Her mother's voice cracking, then steadying, then cracking again. When Angie finally hung up, she stood in the kitchen for a long time, both hands pressed flat against the counter, breathing. That night, She held Lena a little tighter before bed. "I'm sorry," she whispered into her daughter's hair. "I'm so sorry I made you carry this." Lena pressed her face into her mother's shoulder and said nothing. By Thursday, Angie had attended her first support group meeting. Jenny picked her up 2 blocks from the house, and they drove to a small community center on the edge of town. Angie didn't say much that first night, just listened to other women share their stories. Women who had stayed too long. Women who had left. Women who were still figuring out which they wanted to be. She came home with red eyes and a strange kind of quiet. Brent noticed something was off. He circled her like a dog sensing a storm, asking questions she deflected with half smiles and tired excuses. He didn't explode, not yet, but the tension in the house thickened like humidity before rain. Friday night, he announced he was going out. Didn't say where. Didn't say when he'd be back. He grabbed his jacket and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Angie stood frozen in the living room, listening to his truck growl down the street. Then she turned to Lena. "Get your bag. The one in the closet." Lena didn't ask questions. She ran. They moved quickly but quietly. 2 people who had rehearsed this moment in their minds without ever saying it out loud. Angie grabbed the essentials. Documents, cash she'd hidden in a coffee tin, the charger for her phone. Lena stuffed her backpack with clothes, her favorite book, and a stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 4. At the last second, she ran to her room and grabbed something from under her bed. A folded piece of paper, edges worn soft from handling. "What's that?" Angie asked. Lena unfolded it. A hand-drawn map, crayon lines, and misspelled labels. Mountains in the corner. A sun rising over a road. At the top, in careful block letters, "Places we can go." Angie's breath caught. She knelt down and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "You've been planning this," she whispered. "I had to believe we'd go someday." They left through the back door. Jenny was waiting 2 streets over, headlights off, engine running. She didn't ask if they were sure. She just opened the doors and drove. The shelter was a converted farmhouse on the outskirts of the county, clean, quiet, anonymous. A woman named Ruth showed them to a small room with 2 beds, a window overlooking a garden, and a lock on the inside of the door. Ruth handed Angie a key. "This is yours. Kitchen's down the hall if you're hungry. And my door's always open, day or night." That first night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to unfamiliar sounds. Wind in the trees, a dog barking somewhere far away. But her chest felt different, lighter, somehow, like she'd been holding a breath she didn't know she was holding. She was still scared, but it was a different kind of fear now. The fear of something new instead of something inevitable. 2 weeks later, Lena returned to the Iron Valley Riders Clubhouse. It was another community breakfast, another Saturday morning filled with noise and pancakes and sunlight cutting through dusty windows. She walked up to the counter where Deke stood flipping eggs. He looked down and broke into a wide grin. "Well, look who's back." Lena smiled. A real smile, one that reached her eyes. She held out a piece of paper, folded in half. "I made this for you. For everyone." Deke unfolded it carefully. A drawing, crayon, and colored pencil. A motorcycle with 2 riders heading toward a rising sun. Beneath it, in a child's handwriting, "Thank you for coming with US." He stared at it for a long moment, his throat tight. "Your mom doing okay?" he asked quietly. Lena nodded. "She's different now. She laughs more. She's looking for a new job closer to the shelter. And she says we're going to find our own place soon. Something small. Something ours." Deke reached over and ruffled her hair. "That's real good, kid. Real good." On the counter behind him, the glass jar still sat where Lena had left it weeks ago. No one had touched it. No one had counted the coins. They never needed to, because some things aren't measured in money. They're measured in courage, in showing up, in starting the engine when someone asks you to come along. And when that someone is a 10-year-old girl with a salsa jar full of pennies and a map of places she dreamed of going, you don't hesitate. You just ride. This story reminds us that bravery has no age limit, and that sometimes the strongest thing we can do is ask for help. What would you have done if a child walked up to you with that jar of coins? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If this story touched your heart, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Embrace the Journey for more stories that remind us what truly matters. See you in our next video.